Okay, well, listen everybody, I would thank all of you for coming, but of course you have no option because you guys are actually the performers. But I'd like to thank the judges for coming. I want to explain a little bit of the context to help you understand what you're going to be seeing over the next sort of hour and a half. The students, we gave them a prompt, and the prompt is, it's called Designing for Drawdown. How can we design circular economy? So the way that the program works is we give the students a large, open-ended, difficult, complex problem that they need to address and resolve. Every discipline will teach them some segment of what they need to learn. So for example, in English, you guys are learning presentation skills, you guys are taught poetic explanations, for example, of course, and then you're doing literary reading as well. In art, very clear, they were introduced to Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator. A lot of the work that you're going to see in the presentations were a product of the work that they did through Illustrator. Science plays a very prominent role in all of this because they have to, if you look at the butterfly model, there is the biological side and there's the technical side. And the students need to be able to discern the difference between the two, and they need to be able to design in a way that responds to one of those two butterfly wings. World studies, we looked at donut economics, we explored the design cycle and the foundations of economics. So the thing that I want you to understand most clearly is the work that the students do to produce these products was not directed by the teachers. They're given the challenge and then they have 6 weeks to proceed in order to come up with their own resolution to this. All of the content, all of the understanding that they are going to demonstrate is their independent investigations and accumulations of knowledge to present a solution to this. So that'll help you understand what you're about to see. But I think that's everything we need to say. So without further ado, I think we're going to ask group number 1 to come up and start the presentations.
Is eating our planet alive. But I'll give it to you. I'd be hard-pressed to find a person who hasn't gone shopping in the name of retail therapy. We see brightly lit displays and mannequins showing off brand new clothing. We are constantly fed new images on social media of the newest fashion trends. We are overtaken by what's called the shopper's buzz. But if you knew that the colored dyes in your very clothing pollute waters, lie in rivers, poison fish, how do we possibly have it in us to unapologetically wear it? Marketing has now become manipulation.
Fast fashion is the second dirtiest industry in the world, right after the oil industry. Climate change, pollution of air, land, and water can all be blamed on it.
But shucks, what if we told you that we could make the practice of fast fashion into a guilty-free pleasure?
Fast fashion today presents various issues that impact our environment. One of the biggest issues of them all is the use of synthetic textile dyes. With the use of synthetic textile dyes, a great amount of toxic waste is produced and is dumped into streams and rivers, which is known to be the world's second largest polluter of water. In addition, workers that don't wear masks inhale toxic chemicals that come from the dye, and that can greatly affect their health. Lastly, once a consumer has bought their clothes and has used it to its full extent, they throw the clothes out. Because the clothes contain various toxic chemicals from the dye, they cannot decompose. Therefore, they end up in landfills for almost 80 years. But that can change with the implementation of our ethical natural dyes in the manufacturing stage. Natural dyes come from food, organic sources, and plants, which don't contain any toxic chemicals. With the use of natural dyes, no toxic waste is produced, and the clothes can be decomposed with no waste left.
To create the dyes, we'd also be addressing another major issue: food waste. Grocery stores are responsible for up to 10% of the global production of food waste. And by partnering up with countless supermarkets and grocery stores across the nation, we'd we could be turning their food scraps into our very own organic dyes.
On the left here you have anthocyanin, and on the right, Remazole brilliant blue dye. The Remazole dye is synthetic and anthocyanin is natural and found in many types of plants and even food you eat. It's responsible for the colors red, blue, and purple depending on the pH. And as you can see, it only has 3 types of atoms in it, whereas the synthetic dye notably has more, such as sulfur and sodium. One of the reasons why the anthocyanin can break down more easily is because of this oxygen atom. As you can see, it has 3 bonds instead of 2. It's stable with 2 bonds, so having 3 makes it unstable, and therefore the molecule is more unstable. The second reason it breaks down easier is because it's been around for hundreds of millions of years, so other organisms have evolved to learn how to break it down, whereas the synthetic dye has been around for less than 100.
An important thing to understand is that we're not going against the practice of fast fashion.
What we wish to do instead is to preserve the concept, but turn its practices to a more sustainable model.
Let's say you go into a clothing store, say H&M or Zara, whatever it may be. You pick out clothes you like, buy it, and take it home. After the clothes begins to wear out and the quality goes down, you dispose of it.
The wearing of clothes happens in many ways, one of which is when water rubs against the fibers, it can knock off bits of dye. This happens whenever the clothing comes in contact with water, whether it be rain or just washing it. Another way is sunlight. Part of sunlight is ultraviolet light, which has the energy required to break bonds and therefore break down the dye.
At that point in time, the customer could choose to return the article of clothing back to the distributor, where it is then shipped back to the re-dyeing facility. And so the customer could choose to re-dye their textile into a color of their choosing or back to the original color. The article of clothing then is returned back to the distributor, where it's then given to the customer for further usage.
This is the butterfly diagram from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which represents the circular economy. A circular economy keeps materials in use by the process of reusing and repurposing.
The Ellen MacArthur Foundation is leading leaders in codifying a circular economy. And so they are the ones who are bringing in change and trying to implement the circular model. Judges, now you see the butterfly model. The butterfly model represents a way in which the materials and product could be processed in a circular economy way. There are 2 parts of the butterfly Ellen MacArthur diagram, and one of them is the technical side, and one of them is the natural side. The technical side seeks to reuse, repurpose, and also to proliferate the use and just common placement of these products in common households or just by their consumers. And therefore, the product is kept in pristine shapes for as long as possible. The green side of the butterfly diagram indicates how a product or material could cascade, as they put it, or be extracted from the product or material to restore the biosphere and rebuild natural capital. Our product focuses on the technical side of the cycle. And this is due to the reason that we seek to extend the life of our products, and we decided to encourage the customers to reuse our product for as long as possible to make our company more sustainable and viable.
With our process and practice, we'd also be addressing 2 major circular strategies. The first one is smart material choices, and this works by replacing the synthetic dyes with our very own organic dyes. And the second one is the closed loop strategy, and that works by having the customer return that article of clothing back to us to ship it off to the dyeing facility where it can prolong its further use.
According to Statistica, 80% of the general consumer base have a growing concern towards companies not being sustainable enough. And therefore, we as a green company would use this unique opportunity to have a unique entrance into the market by promoting the idea of viable marketing, and therefore addressing the growing consumer demographics concern towards companies not being sustainable enough.
With countless companies beginning to reform their manufacturing process to better inform a sustainable society, it is important to remember that humans hold possession of happiness and ultimately life satisfaction with the number of materials they own.
Let's celebrate and indulge the concept of fast fashion, but in a sustainable manner. It's a simple fix, really. It's not flying cars or the solution to climate change. It's simply using a simple alternative to change finite materials and make the manufacturing process more sustainable.
With implementing this, we can transform the world's worst trash-producing addiction in a positive way.
So Sharks, tell us, who's interested in guilt-free consumerism? Thank you.
All right, well then, everybody. So we're going to turn over to the Sharks here. You guys have approximately 3 minutes to ask any kind of questions that you'd like to know. So I'll step out of the way and go ahead.
Okay. I'll just shout it. It's not on. You didn't mention anything about cost, I don't think. At least I tried to listen for cost. Typically, the consumer, these are great ideas, but consumers are very motivated by cost. Can somebody address that?
So, as for the cost, the natural dyeing process would be more expensive than a natural textile to our information. However, the guilt is that the general community don't have to pay for the environmental cost that can easily outweigh the cost that they're paying for these textiles, and therefore to prevent future disasters from happening, we need to start transitioning to a circular model with the textiles. So then those disasters and perhaps even worse conditions with the world that we are in now today would be compensated monetarily.
Additionally, we said earlier that we are partnering with supermarkets to kind of take their food waste and be able to make dyes out of that. So the dyes would be coming at a reduced cost to what it otherwise would be at.
I'm wondering if in your research you looked at other companies that are using food waste to create natural dyes. Is this something that's already being done?
The idea of natural dyes is an idea, a concept that's already been developed, but the idea of taking food scraps, very literally, or unwanted food, has not been done before. There are facilities that grow their own food to create natural dyes, but that would be creating more waste, more carbon footprint than what we would be doing, which is taking unwanted food.
Thank you. I noticed that I believe, if I understand correctly, you also brought in the natural side of the butterfly model when you talk about food waste, right? So you focused on the technical, but you brought in the natural side. My question is about unwanted byproduct of the process. Sometimes when we focus on eliminating or decreasing a detrimental aspect of one portion, we inadvertently cause something other to happen. For example, maybe there's an enormous water cost through this process that, well, it's just a byproduct because you've decreased over here. Now you've caused another environmental problem over here. Did you find any of that through your work in this process?
We strictly only source our cotton t-shirts from farms that use or implement hydroponic farming. So it is a way that they cascade the water use to grow their cotton in a sustainable manner, which don't waste any water at all, or very, very insignificant amounts. And therefore, with hydroponic farming, we could effectively grow the cotton and also to make the mixture in our dyes sustainably without wasting any water.
Yeah, and also the cotton, Many shirts already use cotton anyways, and we wouldn't be using more cotton than any other shirt. And for the dyes, again, we said that we'd be taking food waste from supermarkets. So that food will have been grown anyways, so we're not using that much more water for our dyes.
Okay, I'm going to cut you off right here. Round of applause for Team 1. We'll now call up team number 2 if you want to come forward.
Hi, my name is Anna, this is Maya, this is Nam, and this is Michael, and we are Canopy.
In 2019, agricultural activities worldwide produced over 8 billion metric tons of greenhouse gases. To put that into perspective, that's over 82 million blue whales being pumped into the atmosphere.
According to the United Nations, the agricultural sector accounts for over 25% of the world's annual carbon emissions. Fortunately, this number can be reduced.
Current day conventional farming is disastrous for the environment. A shocking 40% of all land on Earth is used solely for agriculture. And the deforestation required to meet our farming demands has a significant impact on our planet's ability to draw down our carbon emissions.
And in addition, the increased use of insecticides and pesticides further damage the topsoil, with UN suggesting that we would run out of topsoil by 2080.
One thing we're not running out of, though, is roof space. In the United States alone, there's over 8 billion square meters of unused roof space. And that number is increasing every single year as urbanization becomes more widespread.
These realizations led us to the discovery of Canopy.
Canopy is a rooftop gardening service for urban life in a temperate climate. Pay our monthly subscription and we'll provide you with all the materials needed to turn your rooftop into an eco-friendly crop farm.
Now imagine this. You move into a beautiful new home with your beautiful family, and you decide to check out the roof. And there, you're greeted with a tarp-covered, dull gray, barren waste of space. But with the power of Canopy, you can transform that patch of concrete into a lush jungle full of greenery, flourishing with life. Canopy doesn't just turn your roof into a farm. It turns it into a place where you and your family can make memories that you'll cherish for the rest of your lives.
Nowadays, there are many rooftop gardening services available, but what really sets our service apart from the others is our crop fertilization cycle. Each month, you'll be provided with a carefully planned out calendar to ensure optimal growth for each plant. The calendar will change based on the season and the environment, allowing our service to work year-round.
And this works because certain plants require certain sets of nutrients to grow. For example, potatoes. They require a lot of potassium in order for them to grow the roots. And after we've harvested them, the rest of the plant would still be high in potassium to prepare for the next year's harvest. And we can use that, decompose it, and compost it so that we can create a fertilizer that is equally high in potassium. And this is a circular design because we are using the nutrients from the potato in order for it to fertilize and help grow the next generation of crops that require potassium.
This natural circular fertilization system returns nutrients to soil, uses crop waste, and turns your rooftop into a natural, self-sustaining, eco-friendly food farm.
The planting and composting will all take place in our company's specially designed composting boxes, gardening boxes. These boxes are made of red western cedar. They are very low in density, which makes it very easy for us to transport them. They also have a very long lifetime and can last for up to 30 years.
And don't worry, Western red cedar has a very stable population growth. It will be harvested sustainably, and its ability to decompose allows us to completely eliminate waste and make sure that our company's business model is as sustainable and eco-friendly as possible.
And if you ever want to cancel your subscription or return your box for any reason at all, you can always return it easily, and it will be composted and cycled right back to our company without any of the trouble that would have been necessary for metal or plastic.
Judges, this is a plastic molecule. And as you can see here, where my pointer is pointing, the carbon here has tons of double bonds between them. And that is hard for decomposers to break down. It's as if their enzymes are working like a spoon on a steak. It just doesn't really make sense. And here, we have cellulose molecule, which is a main component of wood. And as you can see, it doesn't have the double bonds that the plastic have, making it way easier for the enzymes of the decomposers to help break it down. And this enforces a circular design because you are turning the box's natural nutrients back into the soil, into our biosphere, in order for the next generation to regenerate from it.
Now, we say circular a lot, but what exactly does that mean? The Ellen MacArthur Foundation is leading the world's transition into a circular economy. On the Ellen MacArthur Foundation's website, it states that a circular economy is based on the principles of designing out waste and pollution, keeping products and materials in use, and regenerating our natural systems. We intend to touch on all three of these topics.
With our sustainable fertilizers and with our composting cycle, we can design out waste and harmful fertilizers. With our long-lasting biodegradable boxes, we can keep our materials in use for as long as possible. And by filling our rooftop spaces with lush greenery, we can aim to regenerate the natural systems that current agriculture is destroying.
The Ellen MacArthur Foundation says it themselves. Changing how we make our food is one of the best ways to regenerate the environment and rebuild a planet that we've spent decades slowly destroying.
And as our population reaches 8 billion, the problem of generating our food efficiently and sustainably has been a huge problem. And increasingly, we need an important solution to solve it.
With your help, Canopy can be a part of that solution. So choose us and let's garden a better future.
One rooftop at a time.
All right, we'll turn it over to the judges one more time.
Thank you. You mentioned many, but I wrote down three aspects that your product addresses. The impact on carbon reduction in the atmosphere was one of your first slides. Changing the food production system was one of your last slides. And I'm imagining as well, decrease of urban temperatures. What would the focus be of your Canopy product? Which one would be the majority of the problem that would be addressed by your product?
I think that originally we were focusing on reducing the amount of land space that we use for traditional agriculture. We were originally looking at vertical farming, but we wanted to make our product really easy for consumers to use, so they could just use it on their own rooftop.
What's the weak link in your proposal? Where did you guys get stuck and say, this part's a challenge?
This part's a challenge and we can't quite find the best solution to it, but we're going to go forward with it anyway. Was there a point in your process where you got stuck and said, this is the best we can do? It may not be the best, but we're going to move forward.
I think one part of the process was trying to figure out what material we'd use for our box. We looked over a ton of different materials, including recycled plastic, different metals, and decided to settle on our final material, which was Western red cedar, because it had low density for cheaper transportation. It had pretty good durability, and the population was very stable and high, so it wouldn't have that much of an impact on deforestation. But
for our decision to end on Western red cedar, we actually looked at plenty of different tree species, and we saw that the density and the rotting time it takes for the box to, I guess, rot with water, the red cedar was the best, most efficient choice in both cost, in both transportation and the rotting time, having it 30 years of lifespan, which is quite high.
I just finished reading The Overstory by Richard Powers, which is a love letter to trees, basically. One of the characters in the book, one of the scientists that speaks, and it says that if you're going to use a tree, what you create with that tree should be as miraculous as the tree itself and as beautiful. Do you feel like your project has done that?
With the cedar's population being very stable and our farming methods right now, being that we're burning a lot of the fields and we're letting a lot of the land go and having insecticides and stuff. The topsoil impact is huge, and I feel like the wasted garden, when we feel like the wasted garden space on top of roofs could be used and set to a better usage to help cities and help our carbon emission. And even though we know that we're cutting down trees, but there's population stable which won't cause any problems in the future with their species, and we are choosing to cut down those that are close to dying or something, so that it's more sustainable. And even though that tree had a lot of drawdown, we can help the consumers themselves for them to have a better efficiency, giving them a better, I guess, freedom to choose what they do and to help the environment themselves, which helps to spread awareness as well. And this, we believe, outweighs the con of cutting down some trees for it.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody. A round of applause. We'll invite up now, of course, team number 3.
Hello, sharks. My name's Kane. This is Aditi. This is Guglielmo, and that is Sarah. Today, we're going to be presenting an all-in-one packaging solution that is sure to leave you on the edge of your seat.
Every year, 165 million packages are shipped in the US alone. The cardboard needed for the boxes is the equivalent production capacity of 1 billion trees. That's 5 million hectares of trees being cut down every year just for American production shipping needs.
Most packages require a shock-absorbing material. Because traditional cardboard boxes don't provide that for us, we use bubble wraps. And bubble wraps enough bubble wrap is produced every single year that can wrap like 10 times around the earth, which is really bad. And since packaging company is the one that uses bubble wrap the most.
The problem with bubble wrap is it's made of a plastic called polyethylene terephthalate. And this polyethylene terephthalate plastic has atoms that link up together using dangerous double covalent bonds. When these molecules link up together, you get the plastic bag that you used when you went on grocery shop the other day. The problem with polyethylene terephthalate is it doesn't biodegrade because how the atoms link up together using dangerous double covalent bonds.
This is when atoms share an electron to make them satisfied. You can imagine this as if you were holding onto an object with one hand. Covalent bonds, though, get very problematic when they're double or triple. Imagine yourself holding onto that same object, but with 2 hands. It would be much harder for somebody to rip it off of you. That's exactly what the creators of plastic had in mind when they made it, and that's exactly why it can take thousands of years for plastic to truly decompose.
Now that we know that bubble wrap is not biodegradable, why do people use it? This lies in the physics of bubble wrap. When a pressure is applied on the bubbles are able to compress, and when the pressure subsides, the bubbles are able to re-expand. The problem is when too much pressure is applied onto the bubbles burst, making them essentially useless. This is how bubble wrap has a very limited lifespan.
So we gave these 3 sheets of bubble wraps to random students in Praxis, and as you can see, it's popped, and our only instruction to them was to give it back to us before the presentation began. So that's good. Since it's already popped, it's useless, and you can't reuse it anymore.
And now this is where our innovative solution comes in.
Sharks Meat Wedged, the all-in-one packaging solution that uses materials that are already in the economy to eliminate plastic usage and still keep your items safe during shipping.
We source the cardboard from art projects, shipping companies, and any organizations willing to give up their used cardboard. We then redesign the cardboard without bubble wrap so that the use of eco-friendly packaging materials increases.
Now why use cardboard, you say? Well, cardboard is made of processed cellulose or paper. And cellulose, as you can see, needs only one bond and uses only one arm to link up to each other.
Now makes it easier to biodegrade and decompose, making it much better for the environment than plastic. Hypothetically, if you dig up a hole in your garden or something and put in cardboard, approximately it will decompose in like a few months. And this can also turn into a compost. Now, what are the physics behind this box and why does it work? Well, shock absorbing is a cornerstone of our design. If the box hits on the sides, the shock is absorbed by the visible folds you see that are holding the product in place and controlling the movement. And if the shock is put on the corners, you see that the force is drawn down the sides, and the force is drawn down the sides, and it is diluted and converted into thermal energy. Think of it as a parking lot in this sense, and the car is parked in the middle floor safely and securely. The red arrows you see over there show where the energy goes depending on where the box is hit. You notice that it all goes to the center, however, it is diluted and the impact on the product itself is minimal.
To prove that these products work, we have given you each your own cardboard box. Feel free to throw it anywhere to see how it works.
Now we'll explain how our box fits perfectly in a circular economy. But that begs the question, what exactly is a circular economy? Well, a circular economy consists of two distinct parts, the biological and technical processes. The biological side is actually quite straightforward. More or less, you want your product to quickly biodegrade after it's used. And in our case, if placed in ideal condition, those boxes will biodegrade within a few months compared to thousands of years that it would take plastic to do the same thing.
Our technical parts for this is that to make sure that our product remains in the economy, and we also this can be also done by like simply sharing a product to like taking the raw materials apart and reusing it again. And our product also focuses on reusing used cardboards, and this can also give us like an advantage. Well, like making it more increases our sustainability of our product. We also intend to share in order to utilize and maximize the lifespan of our box, making it as efficient as possible.
The cardboard box has flaps which you can flip in order to put a product in or retrieve your product. After a customer or a consumer retrieves a product, they can put their own product inside and send it elsewhere.
This model also shows how using wedged compared to traditional packaging solution helps decrease carbon emissions. The thin arrows represent transportation processes that emit carbon dioxide, while boxes around images show that that process in specific emits carbon dioxide. For the sake of this presentation and for the sake of simplicity, we're assuming that all carbon emitting processes emit the same amount of carbon dioxide. As you can see, use from the red boxes and arrows, which represent a traditional packaging solution process. Not only would you have to cut down trees for the cellulose and the cardboard, you'd also have to extract oil, process it, and refine it to make the PET that makes the bubble wrap.
This extensively increases carbon emissions, but our wedge emits 10% less carbon dioxide than a normal plastic emitting solution. This may seem like a small number, but doesn't account for the fact that it counts for the 3 times more it is used in the consumer market, as well as it is using recycled cardboard. When you add all of these statistics together, it emits 3 times less carbon dioxide than a normal packaging plastic emitting solution.
There are other eco-friendly packaging materials that can be used, but this way of packaging is the most circular.
You see, a lot of eco-friendly packaging solutions do one of 2 things. Either they use a slightly more eco-friendly shock-absorbing material that usually biodegrades slightly or significantly faster than plastic, or they use shock-absorbing materials that can be used multiple times, whereas as you've seen, bubble wrap can only be used once or at best twice.
We reuse used cardboard already, reducing the amount of cardboard that's also produced, and that increases the sustainability of our solution.
The continuous conveyor belt of giving only ends when the cardboard breaks down completely. In other words, the cardboard boxes move from consumer to consumer until it completely breaks down, in which case it is time for it to biodegrade.
The carbon emissions per use is also decreased drastically.
And finally, our product can be used in a variety of sizes, and our versatility makes sure that you don't have to wait for the product to be shipped to you if you use our box. Take anything that fits inside, adjust the flaps, and ship it to someone else.
Thank you, Sharks. We hope you consider our sustainable packaging.
You started the presentation by talking about cutting down trees for cardboard. I'm unclear about the source of the cardboard that you use to make your product.
We'd be using cardboard from our project or shipping companies, moving companies, or really any other organization that's willing to give us their used cardboard, so that we wouldn't have to increase cardboard production for these boxes to become a reality. We'd be taking cardboard that's already been used once, and then we'd be redesigning it so that we extend that lifespan of that cardboard as a box.
Thank you.
Essentially, the cardboard that we'd be using would normally be thrown away after one use, but us reusing it creates another use and extends the lifespan.
So tell me about your thought process of how you landed on this idea. It's a bit, I mean, where did you, one of you have a personal experience about you got angry about over packaging, or what? Tell me the story.
Well,
briefly.
In the beginning, really we were in a very difficult spot because we were trying to focus on actually moving house services and how we could include any circular processes there. But then I think with the help of one of our substitute teachers, there was some inspiration there that gave us the idea to protect glass bottles and we wouldn't limit ourselves to bottles, of course, but the design here is most useful for glass bottles. I feel like our group did get angry a lot, but it certainly didn't show, and I think we didn't let it stop us from achieving what we needed to achieve that day, that week, etc. Would you like some examples?
Yeah, and most of before we came to this specific product, this specific tech that we wanted to do, we were mostly focused on plastic and how to reduce it or eliminate it from packaging, any packaging.
Okay, I'm going to intervene right here. So a round of applause for Well, at this point, we'll call up team member 4. You can come up and present, and then I think we'll take a 10-minute intermission, and then we can resume with team member 5. So team 4, come on up.
Yeah, hire that person. No, I don't have a difference. Hire
Hello, Sharks. My name is Ava. This is Lucas, and this is Chloe. And here's our proposal.
In Pakistan, 22.6 million children
Don't go to school.
12.7 million girls
Are unable to have access to education.
75% of girls will not go to school when menstruating, meaning they will miss 45 days of school per year.
And according to Project Drawdown, the leading source for climate solutions, educating girls is the 6th best solution to help decrease the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere.
Educating girls enhances workforce, saves lives, and turns out to have a dramatic bearing on climate change. Feminine hygiene is one of those barriers to girls' education, so we will tackle this issue.
We believe that this issue in Pakistan is extremely representative of issues that are recurring in the globe today. Today we realize that in Pakistan, when girls are on their period, most of them will not attend school. This is an extremely tremendous issue that we hope to tackle, and we want to do this by providing several services and a product that we are going to later introduce. Girls in Pakistan face cultural barriers, cultural taboos, societal shame, and their own issues and fear of being perceived as dirty or impure.
Almost 50% of the world's population knows these things, and
almost 50% of the world's population know the creeping suspicion or the creeping realization that ad flow has come to town yet again. It is something that we all experience, yet there is little discussion or discourse about this topic. For us, it is easy. We know that if we hadn't worn dark pants that day or we didn't bring a sweater to wrap around our waist, the nurse's office is just down the stairs. It's no big deal. But for girls in Pakistan,
shrouded in silence in a mountainside hut in Pakistan, it is a big deal. Mothers are afraid to openly talk about this topic with their daughters, let alone provide them with sanitation products.
Introducing our product, Protects. Our company Protects strives to aid both girls in need of education and the environment by making compostable and affordable sanitary napkins, while also providing a service to help girls become more comfortable going to school. We were inspired by the butterfly diagram made by Ellen MacArthur and the SDGs from the UN to find a problem and to create a sustainable solution.
These 6 materials are what we plan on using to make our product.
the general chemical compounds of our materials is what allows our product to eventually be compostable and be beneficial to the land. The thermophilic temperatures help to balance the organic substrates, which these thermophilic temperatures are the result of biologically produced heat. This heat and energy helps to rid our product of any pathogens and plant seeds.
Sugarcane fiber and bamboo fiber are also a part of the agriculture in Pakistan, seeing as how our operation is heavily contingent on the cooperation of Pakistani girls and their communities, the close proximity would help ease the cooperation. Here's an in-depth diagram of the compostable sanitary napkins we are planning to make. You can see with the labels each section and layer and what material they are made of. Here at Protects, we meticulously have chosen the materials that wouldn't sacrifice any of the efficiency of the product. For example, for the back sheet, we chose the material jute fabric because not only is it compostable, but it also has water-resistant qualities, making it perfect to prevent any leakages.
To go deeper into detail about this material choice, we will compare and contrast the chemical structure of bamboo fiber and plastic.
We chose to use bamboo fiber as a large part of our engineering because we know that bamboo fiber is constructed of this glucose molecule. As we can see from the polyethylene molecule, which is otherwise known as plastic, there are several tight double bonds that prevent the decomposer enzymes from being able to break it down. If we look to the left, we can see this glucose molecule, which does not have any double bonds, so we know that the decomposers are able to access it with their digestive enzymes. This will allow, because the glucose molecule is able to be accessed by the decomposers can then convert it into compost and make it more enriching for the soil and the earth.
Now, we've addressed a lot of the environmental issues surrounding the plastic that's in sanitary products. But there's also a lot of cultural issues surrounding menstruation and sanitary napkins.
We want to bring as much light to this issue as we can. We believe that this cultural issue is one of the main barriers that girls will face, so it's something that we want to harvest a lot of our time into doing. First, we want to have a seminar that we're going to host, and a seminar that we're going to fund from our customers investing in our product. And from that, we're going to use that to sort of host the seminar for women of Pakistan to come and gather and to hear our messages about how to deal with menstruation and why menstruation is normal, why they should buy our pads that are compostable and eco-friendly as opposed to any traditional pads, and how that they can better themselves and better their communities in the future and create a lasting generational impact on the way that feminine hygiene is addressed.
Sanitary napkins right now have a linear cycle, meaning they would be used and then thrown away. We have made a circular cycle with both our product but also our service.
This circular cycle begins with material growth. It begins with growing materials such as sugarcane fiber and bamboo fiber and harvesting the paper pulp. And then this moves on to intentional sustainable manufacturing. Here we assemble these different raw materials and make it so that the product is most effective and make sure that each material is allotted to each different layer of our final product.
Growing and producing this product locally would greatly decrease the cost of transportation, so the cost would be more manageable and more people would be able to have access to it.
This increase of access of sanitary products and information regarding menstruation allows girls to go to school more comfortably about the topic. And this awareness of the topic also allows us to sell our product more and to host more seminars around the world for more girls in need.
Increased customer demand, of course, will lead to more production and therefore more profit in terms of our industry. If there's more profit within our industry and more profit and more production of our compostable sanitary napkins, this will mean that there is more eventual biological regeneration as the compost is fed back into the soil, allowing the beds in which the materials are ground to be enriched and allowing for the plants to be more fruitful. This entire diagram was mimicking the Alan MacArthur biosphere side of the butterfly diagram. This situation demands change.
This demands recognition.
It demands protection.
We need to normalize what is inherently normal. We need Protects to reassure young girls through our sustainable and circular model.
We hope you will consider this.
Thank you, judges.
Thank you.
Turn it over to the judges once again.
Great product. You spoke a lot about the fact that they're compostable. So, but you also mentioned education at the very beginning, because I see the whole world needing these sanitary napkins, not just certain parts of the world. So talk a little bit more about what you think is your greater focus here, the fact that they're biodegradable or the fact that it increases education. Like, where did you start, or did it take you in different directions as you worked with it?
Well, Chloe had the initial idea. She was studying education.
Yeah, so this would be more of a focus on education. Because our service is education. So, we would want more people, like more girls, to go to school when menstruating.
Our main idea was at the beginning was education and stuff about it, and then we also wanted to do something about the Drawdown project that we mentioned, how girls educating girls is the sixth best solution. So we thought about what are some roadblocks that prevent girls from partaking in education, and one of those was hygiene and stuff like that. So we wanted to integrate our circular design into that, which would help us spread more awareness about hygiene.
I think your quote was service and the product are both circular, something like that. Can you describe just a little bit more about the circularity of the service side?
The circularity of the service is more just that the messages will be passed down from generation to generation. And I guess it's not so circular, but it's sort of repetitive and continuous. I guess like a circle would be in our circular product design. So it's not a message that sort of starts and then finishes like a typical linear design would go. It's like continuous, cycling of information.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. So at this point, we'll take a 10-minute intermission. Okay. So we clearly we're at the halfway point. We've listened to teams 1 through 4. We will now turn the stage over to team 5. You can come up and give your presentation.
Sharks, look around this room today. Look around this room. Look around this hall. Look around this school. Look around this city. What do they all have in common? The answer? It's concrete. We have based our lives around this material that is destroying our environment and blackening our skies. Look around! I can put this in context. If concrete was a country, it would be the 3rd largest emitter of carbon dioxide, surpassed only by the USA and China. Our world is on the brink of irreversible damage. The ice caps are melting, cities are burning, and the air pollution has never been worse. This is what our children will inherit. The world is in need of a solution, and we have brought one for you today. Ladies and gentlemen, undistinguished guests, may we present to you Econ.
recyclable, and sustainable concrete. Unlike, just like normal concrete, econ is based off of two main components, a binder and aggregate. For econ, the binder that we have chosen to use is PLA, a bioplastic primarily made of glucose from materials that you can harvest in farms, mainly food. For the aggregate, we have decided to implement green concrete, which is a recycled material with less carbon footprint than normal concrete. Econ has four main benefits. The first one is because it's made from PLA, it can be used in 3D printing, and especially in the future, where 3D printing housing will become more prevalent. This will enable econ to be piped out in a 3D printer and enable it to be 3D printed. And as is with the case with most 3D printed housing, econ will be as affordable as it is sustainable. Secondly, because econ is made from bio-friendly materials such as PLA and green concrete, it will have much less carbon footprint than normal concrete. Now, I know that many of the more scientifically inclined sharks might be aching to ask, isn't PLA structurally too fragile to support a whole building? This is where our green concrete aggregate comes in. Green concrete by itself has way less carbon footprint than normal concrete. And by infusing fragments of it into our solution, we are making it much more structurally sound. And in turn, we're also incorporating recycled materials into our concrete. Lastly, let's talk money. Because our product is made from bioplastic, it is completely meltable. Any houses made from econ can be melted down, and the resulting material is able to be completely reintroduced into the next house immediately. This has huge implications for our economy. Because econ is such a self-sustaining product, we are able to close the cycle of resource mining, and we won't be needing any more raw materials for concrete. This means that econ can dominate the industrial and concrete industry. A self-sustaining concrete industry with econ as its core. Econ is not only offering environmental benefits, it will also revolutionize the whole construction industry.
Now, with our innovative idea of putting PLA with econ, we've made a completely reusable concrete. Now, by adding PLA to our concrete, we've made it is able to melt as well as to be reused as many times as possible without releasing CO2. Now, in contrast, the normal concrete industry releases 975 kilograms of carbon dioxide per 1,000 kilograms of concrete made. Now, econ, thanks to its reusability, serves as a carbon bank, meaning it's not able to release carbon. With econ, we can make reusability and recycling the new norm for materials. Thanks to our product, we'll be able to initiate this change. Now, technically, all normal concrete can be reused, but the process is so harmful and destructive. It counteracts the initial action of reusing it. This is where econ comes in. Econ, thanks to its reusability, does not release carbon and is not harmful. This is thanks to our innovating design. By using PLA, its lack of double bonds it makes it easier to energize, helping it
breaking it down, energized at a low industrial temperature, helping the strands of PLA molecules to break down into smaller strands, turning it into liquid. Which would be then used to build the homes of the future.
At Econ, our continuous pursuit of innovating for a sustainable housing for everyone, we decided to make 3D printing our product as a 3D printing material that's available for the industrial design industry. Industry leaders currently, like NASA and MIT, has already experimented with this current technology and has found great results. We even went ahead and made our own design of what we envision our new home will be like under the influence of 3D printing. So what contribution does Econ bring to the table? 3D printing allows houses to be more affordable and faster construction, while Econ makes the material at its finest be affordable, durable, and environmentally friendly. With this contribution, it benefits all parties, including you. Sharks. I think you've all had the experience of Malaysia's haze. It is mainly caused by the burning of palm plantation in Indonesia. The reason we chose PLA is very intentional. Since PLA is purely based on plants, we could be reusing the plantation residue to extract glucose and cellulose to make back into PLA that will be used in our farm houses. As I would say, one man's trash is another one's treasure. Our PLA incorporated material will be a carbon bank that will free the world from the pollution that will otherwise be made by the burning of plantations. This here shows the different stages of what PLA will experience through our process of having the material. First, we collect it from field that's already harvested and it's about to be burned. But rather than letting it be burned, we will be collecting those. Then we will be in-house producing this PLA, minimizing labor cost. Third, when we're actually building houses, we will mix on-site with aggregate and then print the houses. Last, when the design lifetime or the owner of the house decides to change their house, they change the design of their house, we could remelt the material into a new home.
Econ itself has a lot of opportunity through its design, properties, and sponsorship of 3D printed housing. It is not only more environmentally friendly than normal concrete, but is also cheaper due to its more accessible materials. However, Econ doesn't just want to stop there. It also wants to aid society by potentially helping people who are suffering from the global housing crisis, or potentially funding global aid around the world. Econ aspires to build a future where affordable and sustainable housing is available to all and everyone who might need it. Thank you.
Okay, over to the judges.
Just on
The last point that you made, you talked about, well, the first part of the presentation was mostly focused on the chemistry, I guess the science side of things. And then you brought in at the end the social side of things, where you would solve some housing problems and related issues. So which one do you think your product solves more? The CO2 issue or the social issue?
Originally, our idea was made in order to solve the environmental issue, but we realized that our product, while endorsing 3D printed housing, is actually multi-beneficial to all parties involved. We originally, as mentioned, we made our product to reduce CO2 emissions. So if you're questioning what our original idea was, that's what it would be. But we found that whilst by sponsoring 3D printed housing, we are able to make it more affordable and more available to people who need it.
You're supplementing your construction with an aggregate, a concrete aggregate. Did you come across any research or did you find any issues with aspects of construction and engineering as far as load bearing or structural integrity or breakage when you compare regular concrete versus the concrete aggregate you're using?
Regular concrete and green concrete, which is the concrete where we're deriving our aggregate from, are essentially the same, except that green concrete infuses elements of recycled materials and waste from other industries, which means that it's just as durable as other materials, but more eco-friendly and has less of a carbon footprint because it involves less raw material mining.
Hi. You mentioned that when you melt it down, it doesn't emit any carbons into the air. But you didn't really explain that. It was just kind of a little aside. Can you speak more about that?
Since the melting temperature of PLA is currently 215 degrees Celsius, which is basically the lower setting of any industrial heater, but the actual burning or gas state of PLA is actually a lot higher, around like 600 degrees. So you wouldn't worry about gas being released.
Okay, I'm going to interject at this point. So a round of applause for Team 5. And now we'll call to the stage Team 6.
Around the world, approximately 132 million children are not in school. They miss out on basic education like reading and writing. Why might this be, you ask? Because though education may be free in developing countries, families are burdened by the cost of uniforms, making education out of reach for their children. Judges, as educators, don't you believe that every child deserves an education? Our product aims to ease this issue for many poverty-stricken families, and at the same time mitigates the environmental impacts of unsustainable textile waste.
We bring to you a biodegradable uniform rental service. Our service allows school administrators to rent out and distribute school uniforms to their children, so they can attend school without suffering the cost of uniforms. We, as the producers, will use fibers called agri-loop, made from crop waste, in order to manufacture uniforms commissioned by schools. We will then rent out our uniforms to the school and their children and their students. If ever the uniforms are damaged, worn out, or outgrown, they can be returned back to us to be mended, and then we can give them back to be used again by the students, replacing the worry of having to repurchase uniforms.
Once used to its full extent, and the fibers are deemed expendable, students can simply, we will take back the uniforms and compost them. Students can simply rent the uniforms at a monthly cheaper price than if you can buy it all together. This will relax the financial situations for many students and encourage more students to go to school. This is what we like to call sustainability within accessibility.
Rather than a linear model where more and more resources are taken from the earth to produce products which are sold, used once, and then immediately disposed of, this circular model allows us to reuse the uniforms over and over again and eventually restore it back to the earth. Looking at the butterfly model by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, on the right side of the diagram is the technical side behind the circular economy, which includes dealing with anything that doesn't biodegrade, such as plastic or metal.
Our product follows the left side, right here. When we produce our products, we make sure to cascade it back to the consumer so that it can be reused over and over again. And once it is done, we can return our product to the soil, where it will compost, and then we will harvest more crop waste for the process to be repeated. So how is our specific material, agri-loop, better compared to other textiles like nylon or polyester?
Well, within the clothing industry, conventional textiles like polyester, basically plastics made from fossil fuels, are used to be closed and then disposed of. They take hundreds of years to decompose due to their double covalent bonds, which require more energy for enzymes and decomposers to break down, leaving 195,300 tons of fabric waste annually in Malaysia alone.
In comparison, Agroloop is a fiber made from unwanted green waste like leaves, peels, and trunks of plants from farmers and agricultural businesses. Agroloop is overall made of strands of glucose as seen in the diagram. Here we see that glucose contains solely singular covalent bonds among its atoms. Singular covalent bonds are much weaker than double covalent bonds, meaning enzymes can break down this material easily.
Now, think of it this way when it comes to energy, bonds, and biodegradability. You can tear one piece of paper really easily, but what about 10 pieces of paper stacked all together at once? Of course, we as humans have adapted to this by inventing things such as paper shredders. But enzymes and decomposers in the environment have not adapted to be able to decompose things such as PET or plastic, which are man-made and unnatural. When we choose Agroloop fiber over other conventional textile materials, we choose a material that can requite itself back to the environment instead of harming it.
Additionally, by choosing Agroloop, we prevent crop waste from being left to rot or burn. From being left to rot or burn, which produces harmful methane and carbon emissions. Every year, globally, 210 million tons of banana leaf waste are left to rot. And in India, 32 million acres of rice straws are burnt. Buying unwanted waste can help reduce these emissions and bring farmers and give farmers additional income. And if we can create textiles from something that is unwanted, there's no need to use extra materials to grow other resources.
Now, you may be concerned over the durability of our uniforms considering it is made out of biodegradable material. But we can assure you that unless your body is a mushroom and covered in enzymes, or your washing machine contains decomposers like fungi, kind of weird by the way, our uniforms won't decay throughout usage. Though, because it is made out of green material, it will wear much quicker than a polyester shirt, which is why we have implemented a system where you can return your shirt for a new one.
So, instead of your typical polyester uniform that is harmful to the environment, children will receive our long-term eco-friendly uniforms that are managed by us, the producers.
Using your investments and your money, we will use it to advance the technology needed to create Agroloop fiber, collect crop waste from farmers, and create an effective, efficient distribution system for our uniforms around the world.
Your investment can make a difference in the lives of millions of children by simply enabling an education for them. And at the same time, it'll reshape the way we manufacture clothing and how our earth thrives in return. Thank you, Sharks, for listening.
Okay, we'll turn it over to you.
Is there a prototype that inspired what you guys, I wouldn't think of, there's hemp clothing I've heard about, but I don't know much about it. What brought this on?
I think, my research question for one of my classes was I was researching education around the world, specifically girls' education, and one of the issues was that people can't really, although education's free, people can't really go to school because they have to pay for things like uniforms, textbooks, and things like that, so they can't really afford it. So we sort of based our idea off of that, and while researching, we found a material, Agroloop, as we talked about, which we can produce uniforms with and kind of give these students.
So it was the education issue you're looking at first that led to?
Yeah, basically that.
So one of our criteria is, will it improve environmental conditions? And so one of the things that you mentioned was the decrease of emissions when farmers burn their crop waste. So that's one environmental condition that's improved. What were some of the other ones that you focused on?
So another environmental thing we were looking at was how when when consumers buy things such as fruit or vegetables, there's a lot of trash or waste that goes into their bins that also release carbon emissions due to the waste that it produces. So we were planning to also use that to create our agri fiber to create the uniforms.
Thank you very much. All right, so of course we'll invite up team number 7 to come up.
Hello, Sharks. I am Jackie.
I'm Irene.
I'm Megan.
And my name is Facundo. When was the last time that you felt guilty? Was it when you gave a hard-working student a bad grade, or when you gave it a lot of homework unknowingly? Well, we have the solution to your guilt. Wait, one second, I messed up, sorry. Okay. Plastic has contaminated nature like COVID-19 has contaminated our lives. And it is polluting nature and taking away homes from many animals. But don't worry, we have the solution to your guilt. From this graph, you can see that only 9% of plastic is recycled. This leaves a lot of plastic just rotting away and harming the environment. This is a big threat for our future. But what exactly is our future? Well, this is Todd Lipson, and this is a quote from him. He is the director of Columbia University Creative Machine Labs, and also a well-known American robotics engineer. He believes that 3D printing is the future, and we do too.
Currently in 3D printing, a commonly used plastic filament is plastic, also called PLA. PLA is derived from renewable resources such as cornstarch, sugarcane, beetroot, and sweet potato, making PLA biodegradable. But for PLA to biodegrade within 6 months, as it is marketed, it must be put into ideal conditions. However, this doesn't normally happen, as people rarely separate their polymers, leading to PLA entering nature. After its return to nature, it takes at least 80 years for it to biodegrade fully. But with our product, the process will only take a matter of 48 hours or less. The solution we're recommending is both biodegradable and reusable, and it's just completed with the addition of 2 common additives. With plants, there's no compromise on quality and price whilst being guilt-free. So our product plants consist of 2 main additives, Trichoderma spores, which is a species of fungi, and biolubricant. So Trichoderma spores, they are an excellent fertilizer. They promote plant growth and they enrich soils. They have high heat tolerance, unlike the adult fungus that dies when exposed to extreme heat. And once the product has been used repeatedly and has completely lost its value, the product can return back to nature, where it will receive sufficient heat and water to germinate into fungus within 48 hours. For our other additive, vegetable oil, it is key in reducing our energy, in lowering our energy input, and also ensuring the safety of the spores during the melting process. The vegetable oil will increase the plastic's viscosity, and allowing the flow of heat to be easier in the polymer, and thus decreasing the melting temperature for the polymer.
Here is the molecular structure of PLA. It consists of 3 carbon, 4 hydrogen, and 2 oxygen atoms. PLA is a non-polar molecule, as electrons are fairly distributed across the structure, meaning that this molecule has no net electrical charge. As a biolubricant of our product, vegetable oil consists of 3 complex sub-molecules which are easy for enzymes to break. Since both PLA and vegetable oil are non-polar molecules, the relation between these 2 additives are just like how 2 objects without polarization do not do anything to each other. Meaning that these 2 substances cannot be bound together and they have to be mixed to form our product. The diagram on the left demonstrates the life cycle of a trichoderma as well as the biological structure of a trichoderma spore. To prevent the spore from germinating, our products have to be kept at a moderate temperature with low to moderate humidity. Because who wants their 3D printing products to grow mushrooms? Once the material is disposed of on land, the trichoderma spore will germinate and eventually decompose into pathogens, which is very beneficial because pathogens can be treated as fertilizers and help on the germination of other plant species.
Our solution has benefits both economically and environmentally and socially. So, as emphasized previously, our solution is both biodegradable and reusable. And it also fits in well into the circular economy foreseen for the future. But not only does it not harm the environment, but it helps promote plant growth, and it can't be confused as food by animals as it decomposes so quickly.
Okay, so plastic itself is an essential material in our lives and is found everywhere, from our containers to our packaging, and from our construction to our transportation. Plastic is cheap, durable, easy to use, water resistant, and moldable. No wonder it is such a significant commodity. Plants, which is our product, is exactly like that, but way better. It is not just limited to 3D printing filament. But due to the price of PLA, due to the price of PLA compared to the other polymers, it is not likely that it will become a regular commodity. However, our group foresees that in the future, our product will become more and more affordable as technology advances. Our product not only lives up to the standards of other polymers, it is also eco-friendly. The possibilities and benefits of this product are endless. So our current linear economy is based on take, make, and waste. And that applies to PLA too. Firstly, resources are taken from nature and is made into PLA before being used and disposed of. Later, when the polymer eventually biodegrades, it becomes water and carbon dioxide.
Plants is super adaptable and will sell under any economy. But in terms of the circular economy, we intend for our product to be on the biological side of the butterfly model. After the product is manufactured and bought by consumers, it can be reused and repurposed 2 times a week for 50 weeks before it completely loses its value and is ready to be a biofertilizer used in farming.
With that, please consider using our product to print your future. Thank you.
Thank you. So one of the things about innovation and technology is, as you mentioned, 3D printing. And so a lot of schools do 3D printing in design classes. And I personally have a son who has a 3D printing pen at home and multiple. And so we've got all these little artifacts of plastic, as you say, take, make, and waste. So your solution sounds like a good solution. However, what's very important in your product must be the integrity of it when the final construct is finished, and also the viscosity of it as you're printing it, as you're developing whatever you're designing. Talk to me about how your product compares to regular polymers used in 3D printing.
Because our product kind of germinates into fungi when it's put into ideal conditions, it can't be normally outside or in humid conditions, and also it can't really be exposed to water too much unless you coat it with something. And depending on the percentage of vegetable oil or biolubricant, it might change the viscosity and the quality of the polymer.
I'll just ask you guys about how you work together as a team. Not a technical question. How did you decide who did what, and have balanced out the workload, which is really sometimes a very complex thing to figure out when you're doing group work.
Well, for the most part, we worked really well as a team. And at least in my opinion, we didn't have many like discussions or disagreements. The main problem was the name, actually. And I feel like for the most part, we had a pretty balanced workload. And we kind of worked like separately at the beginning, then we kind of like worked closer and closer together as the time went on. And
And also something I want to add on is that our idea to make the 3D printing the material is inspired by some of our students who are using 3D printing and like the products of the 3D printing. And we do believe that, we do agree with, wait, what's that guy's name? PAWesome? Oh yeah. Okay, who thinks that 3D printing will be more popularized in the future. So we do think like the consuming of material, 3D printing material is really important. And it will bring a really big effect to the nature if we don't use them correctly.
Okay, thank you very much. So that brings us to our final group. So poor Team 8 has had to sit here nervously for about an hour and a half. It's now your opportunity to come up and perform.
So I'm Nanami, that's Pulkit and Zishan, and this is Brickify, the future of circular construction. So the problem we chose to address was stubble burning, a common practice in India and in South Asia. Essentially, stubble burning is the practice of burning crop waste after harvesting, and so in order to get rid of the stubble, farmers have chosen to burn them.
Well, unbeknownst to many farmers, stubble burning has an immense impact on our environment, especially when it comes to our atmosphere. Stubble burning pollutes our atmosphere with toxic gases and loads of nanoparticles. These nanoparticles have an immense health effect on our health, ranging from skin and eye irritation to respiratory diseases and even in the most serious case, cancer. According to Forbes, stubble burning and air pollution has resulted in 1.67 million deaths in India alone. And this is accounted for every 1 in 5 deaths in 2019. So believe it or not, these toxic gases are very dangerous to human health and they exacerbate the effects of climate change. In addition, stubble burning also deteriorates soil quality by destroying and killing the microbacteria and microorganisms residing within the soil, whose sole purpose is to increase the nutrition in the soil. So farmers are caught in a stalemate between their well-being, their business, and the environment.
So, what does this all mean for us living in Malaysia? Stubble burning affects us too. Stubble burning affects us too. Remember when schools would close down due to haze for a few days? The haze that we experience every year in Malaysia is due to stubble burning and peat fires from Indonesia. And the effects of stubble burning would only amplify if there is no change. So, how do we face this issue? We brickify the stubble. And our objective with our product is to provide low-cost housing opportunities for those in need, as well as solving the issue of stubble burning. And India is currently going through a housing crisis with about 4 million homeless people in India, according to Reuters, and there are many more who live in slums. And engineers at the Indian Institute of Technology has written a research paper on how to make biobricks that is later on published in Cambridge, and their material risks include crop stubble, water, and lime. And so we took inspiration from that, but we have modified the recipe and made it better while incorporating it into the circular system.
So the engineers have actually pointed out that the biobricks doesn't actually have much load-bearing capacity as it should have, and so we set out to improve this flaw with our product Brickify. So our product differs from the engineer's BioBrick because we decided to add in calcium carbonate, silica, as well as mud into our mixture.
Calcium carbonate is a chemical that's commonly found in plastics and polymers as fillers, and it has one double bond and two single bonds. And it also has ionic bonds, as seen on the diagram here. And so a double covalent bond requires a high amount of energy to break the bond, which means that it is able to withstand force without breaking apart, hence increasing the durability and hardness of our brick. Calcium carbonate is also cheap and abundant, and it increases density as it acts as a filler, and it also maintains viscosity, which refers to the product's resistance to water.
As you can see behind me, this is an illustration of silicon dioxide, which is in a crystalline structure. This is known as a large covalent structure, which is when loads of atoms come together and they are bonded. And this type of structure, although it does not have double bonds, it takes loads of energy to completely destroy the structure. So we were anticipating that adding this into our brick would make it so that it could withstand more pressure and hence increase the durability. Silica also has a very low heat conductivity rate, which means that even if the outside is warm, the inside will remain cool. And this is excellent for a humid, hot climate like India, where the outside is hot. It's weather resistance because the silica, through a process of microemulsion, it forms a small coating around the nanoparticles within the brick, essentially balancing the pH and making it stable, hence preventing cracking and shrinking.
So we've created a prototype for our product. We've created a prototype for our product, as Pulkit is bringing over, and this is what it turned out to be like. So first for this brick, we started off by shredding paper as substitute for stubble as it wasn't available, but do note that paper and stubble are both made out of cellulose and have similar chemical properties. And then we went on to add in our clay as substitute for mud. And then we added the rest of our chemicals and then mixed it together until it formed a homogeneous type mixture. And then we compressed it into our molds and then poked 2 holes in the middle to ensure quicker air drying.
So what exactly does our brick offer? First of all, it's burn-free, which means compared to the conventional, traditional burnt clay brick, we don't need to burn it, and it's carbon negative, which means that it sequesters more carbon than is needed to produce. And secondly, it is low cost while having the ability to bear weight. And thirdly, it maintains humidity, which is crucial for a hot climate like in India. And it is also a great insulator for sound and heat.
So in our circular system, it starts when we incentivize the farmers with money to harvest their stubble, and then we collect their stubble to manufacture it, and then we target initiatives set by the Ministry of Housing and Internal Affairs of India to combat homelessness, and then we distribute the bricks to our target demographic, and then as per Cambridge's study set by about biobricks, bricks that are made out of stubble tend to last about 100 years. And so from there, we can dismantle the brick walls after its use, and then we can pulverize it, and then we'll recollect it, and then mix it in with some new biomass, and then remanufacture it.
Well, why should you invest in our product? First of all, it's cheap. We are turning something that is literally worth nothing into something that could be of good use to someone. It's profitable. We have a large demographic of 4 million people who have a desperate need of our product. It's sustainable as our brick is carbon negative, which means it sequesters more carbon than is needed to produce it. It's circular. Our product is manufactured, used, and then remanufactured within a closed loop. And it's accessible. Through the Ministry of Housing, we have attempted to ensure that the people who need our product the most receive it. So now we'd like to call you up on stage for demonstration, if you would like to do that.
If you could please stand on the brick, just to show that it doesn't break.
You could drop it or you could step on it.
Why are you looking at me? Would you like me to come around? I hope this works out for you. What, I just like a karate thing, or?
You can stand on it, you can pick it.
I don't want to throw it on the floor. Yeah, it seems pretty sturdy to me, guys.
You can throw it against the carpet, it shouldn't break. Yay, thank you.
Well then, okay, we have the last session of questions. Go ahead.
You sort of addressed one of my questions that I had while you were speaking, but I'll see what you say now. During the life cycle of your product, your circular design, which aspect of that design do you feel will be most challenging for you in your quest to get Brickify in motion?
Well, should I? All right, personally we thought that the first step, incentivizing the farmers to collect the stubble, would be hard because in maybe many countries like India, that's considered like taboo. It's just a tradition. After the harvest season, you just light the entire fields on fire. So getting them to actually harvest the stubble would be very difficult.
But then again, since we're incentivizing them, it helps tackle the issue of poverty. And though in the beginning they might have to manually remove the stubble, but as we incentivize them and as they gain more money, they get more profit. They could possibly afford straw management equipment like machines so that it helps them remove the stubble.
Can you click back to your one where you show you how you make the bricks? I didn't see, as you get back there, I did not see where any of the stubble that you were putting into your mixture. Yeah, where am I?
That's not stubble. We used a paper as an alternative because we thought it would work because first of all, we did not have access to stubble, but bear in mind that they have a very similar chemical composition. They're both made of cellulose and we thought it would be a good substitute.
Okay, I'm going to step forward. So what we're going to do now is we're going to give the judges approximately 5 minutes to deliberate. You guys understand the process here. It's a little bit of winner takes all. I'm just joking about that. I would say I'll speak right now. You're going to hear more of this down the road when the other teachers speak to you. I was thoroughly impressed with all of you. You guys were really good today. In every regard, both content-wise and presentation-wise. So there really aren't any losers, and I know that sounds cliche, but I think it's true.